we have already introduced the notion of continuity. In physical models, we are whenever we are trying to write it in terms of mathematics, the explanation is going through the notion of continuous functions. A continuous process can be represented by continuous functions. That is what the utility is. It's far-reaching effects. See, whenever suppose we are trying to look at a function which is continuous on a closed bounded interval AB. We have a real valued function defined on the closed bounded interval AB. Then very special properties are also going to enjoy by these continuous functions. See, whenever we are saying continuous at a point in AB, either it may be a boundary point or maybe an interior point to that. Wherever your x0 lies, ideally the notion of continuity guarantees that go nearer to x0 will keep the nearness or proximity of f of x values nearing to f of x0. That is what it is guaranteed through a continuous function. That is what is used to say that a function is continuous at a particular point. And we know that in the domain, the full domain, we used to say that it is continuous whenever it is going to be continuous at each of its points. So this is how we have developed the notion of continuity. But as I mentioned, once you are working with these kind of domains, I mean a closed bounded interval, for example here, this continuous function has very attractive property as I assured. See, one of the properties is something like this. See, suppose you have a graph of a continuous function from some a to b. I am marking some ab on the domain, and roughly if my continuous function is going like this geometrically, then what happens on the codomain part, on the range part, just look at f of a here, a, you are getting f of a here. In the picture what I have drawn here, this evaluation is going to be f at b. So the curve is very smooth without any break, it goes on. So while moving from a to b, what happens at any point here, I mean in between them, for example I may take x0 or whatever it may, this function is continuous means f of x0, I am marking it here, go nearer, you will be going nearer to f of x0 here. That is what it says. So in this situation what actually happens is whenever you are moving from a to b, and if you know what is f of a and f of b, you can't miss any points in between f of a and f of b. That is what the curve actually gives, because see, you take any point from f of a to f of b. So for example, I may take an m in the range part. So obviously, since the graph is a continuous curve, this will come from an input which is coming from somewhere here. I can say, I can call that c. So this c has to be mapped onto this m. This is the one of the best notions that we can observe, which we will call the intermediate value theorem. Intermediate value theorem means in betweenness is completely fulfilled or attained from the domain, from the codomain, on a range part whenever you are fixing it up on a closed bounded interval. So very concretely one can write down the notion as follows. You start with a continuous function which is workable from a to b. Then m is any number, any real number in the in between f of a and f of b. They are boundary, f of a and f of b are boundary points, so we are including that also. Then obviously the theorem says that you can find a c, at least one number c, in your domain a to b, for which this f of c is going to be exactly this f. That is what is going to come. Any values in between f of a and f of b can be achieved. See, for example, if your m dash is somewhere here, that is coming from here, one c can be taken from here. From the picture, I can even taken from here. These are all various points I am going to get c's, which can be depicted in the second picture very easily. So at least one is guaranteed, more than one is also can be done. So this is what the intermediate value theorem assures us. So nothing is left out in between f of a to f of b. See, whenever you are looking at this, it's a closed bounded interval. Domain was a closed bounded interval. Whenever we are looking at the interval, actually means everything it includes in between the boundaries, right? Vaguely, that is the notion. So an interval under a continuous maps basically going to an interval. That notion is hidden inside. So that is what the whole usefulness of the intermediate value theorem. Far-reaching applications we can have it. Once you understood this in this level, we can have a very best example. See, for example, familiar examples one can look at. Whenever you are looking at examples, the first things will come from the basic examples are coming from polynomial functions. So once you are working with a polynomial p of x, which is going to be something like a naught plus a1 x plus etc a n x n square x n raised to n. Sorry, this is a continuous function everywhere throughout the real line. So if you are working on a closed bounded interval and look at this function, right? So it's a continuous function. So polynomials, whenever we are discussing the roots, the zeros of these functions and corresponding roots of the equations are really important. We know geometrically what is happening there. So that is another hint we have to use it now, because whenever you are looking at the graph, what is going to happen for a polynomial function is go for its zeros, means whatever be the value you are going to give for x, which gives you f p of x should be 0. That is, the y value should be 0 corresponding to that x input, which says while drawing the graph, it has to pass through where y is going to be 0. That is, it crosses x-axis. That is what it says. So whenever we are having a graph y equals f of x in general, we know that it is a continuous function defined on a closed bounded interval here. So this zeros, whenever we are trying to discuss about, if you are knowing that, see, whenever 0 is taken means it's a continuous function, intermediate value theorem actually guarantees any two values from f of a to f of b are going to attain. See the graph which I have plotted here. Look at f of a. F of a is a positive real number. F of b, you are going to getting a negative real number. So from a positive real number here to a negative real number you are moving. Function is continuous is known. Then it has certainly has to, the curve has to pass through the x-axis where y equals 0. That is what basically the 0 of this polynomial function. So if the function f of x is going to be continuous on the closed interval ab, which I have plotted here, then if you are sure that this f of a and f of b, here in this picture this f of a is a positive real number and f of b here it is going to be a negative real number. So it has to pass, the curve is, the graph is given here, from the positive to negative, certainly it has to cross through the 0. 0 here means y equals 0. Y equals 0 actually refers this, right? So f of x equals 0 has to be taken from some point, at some point, because of the application of intermediate value theorem. So in between this open interval AB, you have to cross this x-axis, which means it's becoming a 0. At least one point should be there, maybe more than one point. In the second figure, look at f of a is going to be negative, f of b is going to be positive. Our curve is something like this, which means it crosses twice or thrice here. So you may have so many zeros. Here it is 3 zeros in the particular continuous function we are going to have. So at least 1 0 is guaranteed. So these are very useful application of intermediate value theorem. So one can even think about, is there any way of finding out, I mean, for a general for a continuous function, or see, at least for a polynomial, if you are looking at some polynomial you have to start with, and maybe something like f of x equals x cubed plus x minus 1. And if you are searching for the zeros, by trial and error and applying this method, one can actually develop to reach at the zero of this function, numerically I mean. Because see, a moment's thought will say that you look at f of 0 here, it is obviously going to be minus 1, right? For this particular function, f at 1 you try to do it, it's simply 1. So this is a polynomial function, it is continuous everywhere. So in particular minus 1 to plus 1 also. So what it guarantees is we should have some zeros in between minus 1 and plus 1. So somewhere it will happen. So we have to find a c for which f of c is going to be 0. So one can see what usually the numerical method is going to be done here is you will approximate it, and bisection kind of methods we will use it. That we are not discussing it now, but it can be a very useful tool in locating and getting the roots numerically. Anyway, this intermediate value theorem guarantees all these ideas. But so continuous functions on a closed bounded intervals has to do much more than that the usual continuous functions in a general domain. Let us slowly look at, see, while geometry is also very keen interest, it's of very keen interest for us. So while understanding a function through its graph geometrically, whenever you're looking at general curves of functions, and you try to understand that y equals f of x, how to understand this fellow? If it is a nice curve, we can easily look at all the behavior. But the easiest curves geometrically, if you are talking about, their straight lines. Straight lines are the first or primitive fellows one can start with straight lines, as well as circles are also important. So if you are looking at a straight line, one can have the notion of, you have almost studied it in the plus 1 and plus 2. You have all the notion of levels which are called slopes and all. So if the curve is and y equals f of x, try to understand the behavior of f of x, y equals f of x. Point wise you can try, and the notion of continuity is also known for us. At each point you are going to get the corresponding f of x and marking it. That is how the trajectory is given to come. So continuity has to say something about that. But if you are geometrically, if you are more and more interested on this, at a particular point if you are looking at, try to look at through its, see, straight lines are really nice fellows. So look at approximation through straight lines, which I am keeping in my mind, is something like tangents. Tangents actually give very nice picture on the curves at that point. That is another way of looking at. The next step of looking at the behavior of the function as well as their graphs, what it happens. If the curve is slightly difficult to understand, better to look at the supporting lines, I mean, which are going to be tangents later. So the natural question comes, what exactly is going to be a tangent? So our experience of the terminology tangent, at first we are looking from coming from the circles. Whenever you are having a circle, and if you are looking at a point P on it, what is the tangent on this point means we will just draw a straight line like this. But that's okay. A vague idea is fine. But what exactly, how will you go through that? The notion, how it comes. Very perfectly, how can you say that? See, only one point is given, P. Through a point, so many straight lines are there. So how will you make it a perfect, rigorous definition of this fellow? Have you ever thought about it? See, if P is the point in question, if you want this particular straight line to be the answer, one can look at like this. You go for a point somewhere at Q. So 2 points are fixed on this circle. Circle is a curve, a particular curve what I am looking at. Now in this case, what is going to happen is through P and Q, a unique straight line is there. That is sure. Now, how to get the tangent, the final L? I may write L as the tangent line, which I am keeping in my mind. How to get that? What is the best way is this Q, you make it nearer. I may write Q dash. So again, I will get an approximation. Go again nearer to Q double dash. Again, I will get. See, these fellows are called secants. So I will get secants by approximating like this. So take a point Q, then allow this point nearing and nearing to P. So the final approximation merges with L. That is the way one has to do perfectly. In this picture, you don't have to move from this side. Either from this side also you can move. You can start with some R here and some, this will come like this and merge like this. This is the whole notion of tangents, the limiting positions of the secant lines. That is one way of getting the things. That is not only reserved for these circles, any curve one can give this notion. That is what we are trying to look at now. So while defining that, just remember, if you are in an arbitrary fashion, if you are looking at our curve may be something like this. Sorry. So at this particular point P, if you are interested to draw the tangent at P, the whole notion is as above. Look at a nearing point, go for the secant line, allow this Q come and closer to P. Your secant lines merges with whatever you are keeping as the tangent. That is whole notion of coming, either from, in this picture, either from this side or from this side you can look at. So the whole tangent is going to come. Tangent line is going to be a straight line which touches exactly on that point. That is what the whole notion is going to come. Graphically, still more things we can talk about. Whenever you are having A, for example, here, your graph may be something here. Okay, I will, for easiness, I will draw like this. So my A may be here, it corresponds here. And if you are interested the tangent line at A, what I am going to look at is, I will go a little bit right to that in this picture. For example, A plus H will be there, some increment I will make it. So that will map here. So these points on the curve correspondingly will give you, this is my y equals f of x, right? So this A will give an f of a value here. This may be f of a value. So coordinates, if I am looking at A comma f of a, I have to write for this particular point P. If I am interested on this point Q, I may write the nearing point. That corresponds to the increment A plus H, which means this Q can be represented as the x coordinate is coming as A plus H. Correspondingly, an f value will be as same. That is f of A plus H we will going to get here. That is, the point has to be marked there. So in this case, if you are looking at the tangents, as I mentioned before, draw this PQ, then that secant will come, slowly merge all these things to the point, the straight line, which is going to be a tangent there. So while looking at this, the secants and this approximation turns out to be as the tangent line. So how to say that? Some notions you have to look at. Whenever you are looking at a PQ here, for example, this is a secant line. But in this secant line, if you are interested on the slope, what it is going to come is, see, this is A, this is A plus H. This is x value is corresponding to the first and second one. Maybe I can write x1 and x2 here. So correspondingly, I am getting y values here, f of a, as well as this point is going to give me f of a plus h. This is the corresponding y values I am going to get. So x1, y1, this is the point x1, y1. This point is corresponding to x2, y2. So obviously, the slope of this secant line PQ is going to be given as y values difference by divided by the x value difference, which means the quotient. So if I am writing m for the slope of this secant line, what it is going to give me through that is f of y value difference is f of a plus h minus f of a. X difference is a plus h minus a. That means actually s, h only. So this is what is going to come as the slope of this secant line, I mean. That is a different quotient I am going to look at. And while I am merging with the, I am approximating Q to Q dash and making stable with P. So finally it comes like this, and the tangent line. Whenever I am looking at the tangent line, so these quotients what I'm applying is the limit of these quotients, that is limit of f of a plus h minus f of a divided by this h, this increment I am making it smaller and smaller, and then I will merge with a, which means I will allow h tends to 0. I will allow h tends to 0, try out to finding out the limit of this difference quotient, then that is going to be the slope of the tangent line at here at a. I may write it as m, usually stands for the slope for mathematicians. So m tan I may write. So this is what is m tangent. I mean slope of the tangent line is supplied. See, these geometric notions can be applied well. While first as an exercise we will do something, and it has to do something more on physical processes and all that we will check in a while. So let us just look at some of these ideas more precisely. So tangent line, profitably we can write like this: PAF of A mean corresponding to the x coordinate A, and corresponding y coordinate is going to come as f of A. Be a point on the graph of the function which I have written before like this, and tangent line at P if you want. I mean, not always a tangent line exists. That is another question. Whenever it exists, right, on the graph, the line passing through the point and its slope is given through this limit, the quotient you find out f of a plus h minus f of a by h, allow h tends to 0, that gives actually the slope of this fellow. So whenever it exists, it's fine, otherwise it's not defined. You have to say like that. But that allows us in, see, once the slope of this tangent line is known, we can actually find out the equation of this tangent line too. Because this point P, it passes through. If this is my x1, y1, the point x1, y1, the slope and point form will give the answer. So y minus y1, that is y minus f of a, is going to be equal to the slope of the tangent times x minus x1. X1 here is a. So simply put that. This formula will be highly useful here. So if somebody is interested on the equation of the tangent line at a point P A f of a means a point on the domain A corresponding the value there, that is a y value here, then the equation can be given as y minus f of a is going to be given as the slope f tan, am I right, into x minus a. So this formula we can make use of to find some examples. Just you look at some easy exercises. See, for example, find the slope of slope and an equation for the tangent line passing through the curve f of x equals x square at the point P11. P11, I mean my a is a, f of a is also, f at 1 is going to be 1 again. So this is my f of a. Both are going to be 1, but right. So first itself we have to find out the slope of the tangent. We know the formula. It is given by f of a plus h minus f of a by h, and allow to go to the limit as h tends to 0. Simply apply that. Limit of this value will come like this. Expand it. Do the usual manipulations. Find out the limits. You will be at here. Limit of h plus 2 plus h as h tends to 0. We will mark it as 2. So the slope of the tangent at the point 1, 1 is going to be like this. Now simply use the fact that this slope is known for us. Point is 1, 1. So x1 is 1, y1 is 1. So that point slope form will give what should be the equation y minus y1, that is 1 here is going to be slope times x minus x1. That is all. We write it, you will get like this. This to make it more familiar, one more exercise we will try. Find the slope and the equation of the tangent line to the graph of f of x equals x square. Okay, a little bit more we will go. One more exercise. Find the slope and an equation of the tangent line to the graph of the equation y equals minus x square plus 4x. That is my curve now. Point is 2, 4. 2, 4 means this is my a, this is my corresponding f of a. right? As before, I will find out the slope of the tangent first. So f of 2 plus h minus f of 2 by h, as h tends to 0, I will try to find out, expand it. Just use the formula f is given by minus x square plus 4x. You have to apply that here for 2 plus h, for 2 here. Take the difference, divide by h, allow it, simplify it. So you will be at this situation. Finally, you will be getting the slope is 0. Again use the equation y minus 4, minus y1 here is 4, this point, and equal to, slope is going to be 0 and x minus 2, that is x. So y equals 4. See, y equals 4. It's a straight line pass parallel to, see, something like this. Y is going to be 4 here, right? So it is parallel to the x-axis, you will be getting like that. So one can try good examples of from the text also, and see this idea of sequence and the geometrical limiting idea of tangents that has a very nice connection with physical realities. By physical reality or models, what you are looking at is, whenever you are considering a function y equals f of x, see, it internally says that depending on x, y is varying. So as x varies, y also will make a change. Try to understand how it changes, how you measure this change. That is ideally is given by this notion. See, this kind of questions we have tackled while doing classical mechanics. Whenever you are interested in velocity, for example, this kind of problems we have done. In what sense? See, at that time, our usual in physics, whenever we are trying to look at, we used to write the displacement and the time is related. Whenever a body is moving or a point is moving from somewhere to somewhere, as the time is elapsing from the 0 to somewhere, you have displacement also is changing. So s is the usual notation for displacement. So s, the displacement, can be written as a function of t. As t changes, time changes, displacement also will be changing. Something like y equals f of x here. So x, at that time we will mark it as t and our y was s. So in this situation, from the displacement, we have a short interval of time. Maybe we used to write delta t later. In that short interval of time, how much displacement has occurred, that usually we used to write delta s, and we will look at this quotient normally, delta s by delta t. So it gives the average actually, right? It actually gives the average rate of change you will get in this time interval, whatever it is. But there is a very fundamental question. Whenever you are dealing with velocity, for example, if you are starting from one point to some other point, velocity varies. So suppose you are starting from 10 a.m. from somewhere and you are reaching at 10:20 at some other destination, you can obviously find out the variation of this displacement with respect to time. But it will be more relevant to ask, see, at the 5th second what happens, or the 11th second what happens? What exactly is going to be the velocity? See, this actually gives the speed or velocity in this situation. This gives a notion, but it gives the average velocity. Whenever your displacement is under concern and you are taking the rate of change of these fellows, that is what you are going to look at later, because the average is given, that is delta s by delta t, that is gives an average velocity or speed correspondingly. Now, if you are looking at the limit of this fellow as you are allowing delta t tends to 0, what you are going to look at is the instantaneous velocity. That is what is very, very important for us. At a particular instant of time t naught, can you find out what exactly it is? So t corresponds to s somewhere here. S is depending on t. So whenever you are looking at here at t naught, look at what happens for an increment. See, t naught plus h, if you move a little bit more, he will be here. See, at somewhere here. Then this delta s means delta corresponding to the, actually this is the quotient which comes as s at t naught plus h minus s at t naught divided by the difference, that is h. That is the quotient what you were discussing before. So that idea, that quotient, and if you are allowing h instead here is actually delta t. Here, your h is going to be that. Okay. So h is going to be 0 here. So in this case, the average rate of change of the function over that interval is your delta s by delta t. And at this particular point, the secant is going to be coming as the tangent and its slope is going to come ideally. That is what we are trying to say, the instantaneous or rate of change of the function, right? S with respect to t in this case. So this physical experiment or experience will share at how one can generalize this concept. So whenever you are having a general function y equals f of x in a nice domain, and if you are interested the average rate of change of the function over any interval a to a plus s, that is our mathematical part, if you can filter it out. So f is a function, it works from a to a plus h. In that case, if you are interested the average rate of change of this function, how it varies accordingly, statistically one can say you look for f of a plus h minus f of a and divide it by a plus h minus a. That is the variation happened on the a side. So this goes off and you will be getting like this. So this actually comes with this notion. This quotient actually gives the average rate of change of the function f. And geometry we know already, we have already discussed, and the instantaneous rate of change of the function with respect to x at particular point a, if you are interested, just go for its limit as h tends to 0. Remember, whenever you are talking about limit should exist. So these physical realities can be well used in mechanics and as well as in physics problems. The instantaneous rate of change of f with respect to x in this case at a, we are writing it down. It is geometrically is going to have the same value as the slope of the tangent line at the point a f of a. Right? That is the most important thing. So let us conclude all these things what you have stated. One can define average rate of change of the fellows, instantaneous rate of change of the fellows. Obviously, the whole transition from secant line to tangent lines will give the connections here, which you have mastered in physics. And more or less, we can try some exercises also. So many examples are given. Depending on S and T is also, see this is a particular example if you are interested. S is a function of t, which is given as 40 square. Interval is from 0 to 30 is given. So in general, at first 2 is in a point in between 0 and to 30. 2 to some interval h, see this is what the interval is, 0 to 30. So somewhere 2 is taken, and any h you are taking, so 2 plus h you will having it here. So in the example cited here, f of a plus h minus f of a by h, that gives actually 2 to 2 plus h interval, what's the average rate and all the things. So expression will come on simplification as 16 plus 4h. So since this is a problem which can be related with physics, displacement is in terms of described in terms of time. So s is a function of time. Instantaneous velocity, if you are interested, this first one gives the average velocity at this. It's only an average in the time interval h. But if you are looking at the instantaneous at the particular point 2, t equals 2, what happens? Then you have to apply the limit as h tends to 0. If it exists, that is what is going to come. So while just applying the formula here, it will come as 16. This notion actually gives some way of looking at the real calculus, how to develop calculus from this instantaneous velocity and further acceleration. All these kinds of things are coming from very nice physical realities. To discuss all of them, so we are turning towards the the calculus, how it develops through differentiation and all. That is where we have to look at now.